The following production is part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network.
Welcome to Bored with Video Games, the gaming podcast that strives for your right balance of coverage for games you play on your table and on your television. You can think of us as the grilled cheese and tomato soup of gaming podcasts. We're a proud member of the PSVG Podcast Network and a member of the Make Us Better team over on Patreon. I am one of your hosts, Kyle, and joining me on this co-op adventure, the only guy I would want to be dunked in. Josh, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, I don't know how to feel about that one. I'm doing good. Just another day, another dollar, if you know what I mean.
I hear you. Are you a fan of grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup?
I can't say I'm a fan of being dunked in. That hasn't happened yet. But yeah, I mean, we're hitting winter. It's going to be, we have our first freeze advisory tonight. I know that other places in the country have already got hit, but considering it was 75 degrees 2 days ago again, a freeze advisory is a nice setting for, we made chili last weekend and now tomato soup and grilled cheese or quesadillas even. It's that kind of season now. So yeah, I enjoy it. It's not something I could do year round, but I do enjoy doing it in the wintertime. Gotcha.
Yeah, I actually had chili tonight for dinner because it's chilly here. So go with it. So are you a fan then of like the traditional grilled cheese, like white bread, American cheese, like Campbell's tomato soup? Do you like to fancy it up a little bit? What are your thoughts on the grilled cheese and soup situation?
There's so many different places around here that do like that gourmet style, which I'm totally cool with. I like me a 4-cheese grilled cheese. But on the flip side, we don't curse on here, but I'm a basic B when it comes to tomato soup. I can just go buy the microwave to-go cups and sip out of that, and I'm totally fine doing that.
So do you like tomato soup just on its own?
Yes, I do. I don't need to throw anything crazy in it. When I was a kid, I used to put maybe like oyster crackers in it.
Right.
But I'm a tomato fan. So yeah, I'm like a plain, I don't need to put any seasoning, nothing on it. Just give me some tomato soup. I'm good.
Interesting. I like tomatoes a lot, and I'm indifferent about tomato soup. Like I like it with stuff, and I like fancied up tomato soups, but just regular traditional tomato soup for me is it's a take it or leave it. Like I'll eat it, but I wouldn't probably choose to have it for like a lunch or something like that, unless I had a delicious grilled cheese to dunk it in.
Yeah. It's a nice late night bar meal too.
Tomato soup is
grilled like a nice grilled cheese with tomato soup.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm more of a frozen pizza guy at that point. So I also am very snobby about my grilled cheeses, though. I make very fancy grilled cheeses when I make them. So
my neighbor does too, but he spends a lot of money on it, and I can go buy a $2 loaf of bread and
that's very true.
Just get a regular American cheese, and I can be fine.
Yeah, my grilled cheeses have things like eggs and bacon and other things on them.
I'm cool with that too, but I'm good either way.
Awesome. Hey, but you know what? This isn't a food podcast, though I would really, really love to do a
food podcast. We should just do a food podcast also.
We absolutely should. This is a gaming podcast, so thanks so much for joining us this week. It's a little weird for us. We're recording on a Wednesday night instead of Tuesday, thanks to YouTube. Man, that was weird yesterday, right? When does YouTube go down?
I tell you what, people were freaking out.
I know, and granted, it wasn't down for all of that long, but that's the longest I think I've ever seen YouTube be down that I can remember.
Goes down. Yeah, that never goes down.
So we're recording on a Wednesday, so this will be, everything's just different. But as always, if you have any feedback, questions, suggested topics, hit us up at Bored with VG on Twitter, also over on Instagram, also at Bored with VG. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/boredwithvg. So feel free to give us a very fancy 5-star rating over there. You can send us some long-form communication, boardwithvg@gmail.com. I thought maybe we were going to get that fan fiction, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So if there's someone else out there now who wants to take up the flag and make a Board with Video Games or even a PSVG fan fiction, totally down with that. Send it to boardwithvg@gmail.com.
I shouldn't say much, but I can say it does exist.
Oh, really?
I have seen some of it.
Oh.
And it is a work in progress.
Excellent. Well, hey, you know what? I'm down for that. That's fine. Take all the time that is needed to craft it into the masterpiece I am sure it is going to be. And as always, use that hashtag #BoardWithVG on all the social media so we can check out what you're doing, what you're playing. Even if you're just going to a movie, feel free to use that. We like to check in to see what folks are doing in their free times. If you're interested in helping make us better, check out patreon.com/makeusbetter. Big thanks to all the supporters out over there. You really help us make all of this possible. So thank you so much to those of you who can chip in $1 or $2. And if you can't, that's totally cool. We are just really happy you are willing to give us a listen. So enough of the housekeeping. We're going to talk about the games we've been playing. So Josh, what have you been playing on your tabletop, sir?
Okay, well, I will say, so not this weekend, but the previous weekend was our little Kickstarter night. With the wife, we decided to play Spirits of the Forest. Or Spirit? Is it Spirit of the Forest or Spirits? It's Spirit of the Forest.
I think it's Spirit, singular. I will look while you talk.
Okay, well, it's either or. We played Spirit or Spirits of the Forest. We also played Mystery of the Temples. Those are 2 Kickstarter games. I think I'll wait to talk about Spirits of the Forest because Kyle also got that game. So I think it might be a better episode when Kyle plays it for us to talk about it.
It is Spirits. There's an S on the end, yes.
I mean,
well, now I will have to make sure I play it in the next 2 weeks here.
At your leisure. I mean, I will play it again probably before then. That's a little bit maybe of a spoiler. And last weekend, maybe we'll talk about Mystery of the Temples, maybe not. It was a good game. If you look at the pictures, a very beautiful game by Emperor S4. But most recently, we played Grim Forest, which is a game that I have wanted for a long time. And coincidentally, I won from the Gen Cant contest during Gen Con, which is a Twitter page or group that runs contests for people who are not able to make it to Gen Con. A lot of developers donate games to these people, and I was fortunate enough to win Grim Forest by Druid City Games, who, if you're not familiar, also just launched a Kickstarter 2 days ago, I believe, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, as I am a backer, and I'm not sure if Kyle's backed it or not. But I know it is
on. Yeah, it is on my remind me list. I have a little reminder set for it. So,
but anyways, I'm not talking about the Kickstarter right now. Really, I want to talk to you about Grim Forest. If you haven't seen this game, even the cover alone, it's very catchy. If you're into the fairy tales and the fables, like a lot of people are, it's definitely eye-catching. And what sets it apart right away from other board games that you might see on their shelf are the quality of the miniatures that are in the game, and for the price of the game. The price, even though I didn't pay for it, it's not terribly expensive compared to some games where you see with like high-quality miniatures. So that's good right away, and the components are of great quality. And I guess I'll just tell you about the game. We played 4 players. You play as 4 little pigs, not 3 little pigs. But it's very much in that like mythos of the 3 little pigs. You're building. The goal of the game is to build cabins out of either straw, wood, or brick. And everyone has a player board. On your player board, it's where you build your cabins. The first person to complete 3 cabins is the winner. Not the winner. It initiates endgame. And so straw is obviously the weakest of the structures, so it's easier to build, costs less resources, and then wood and then brick in that order. And what you're doing is it's a draft style resource management game. I found it similar to Stone Age because in the middle of the board you have different locations. For 4 players, you have 4 locations. If you play less than 4, it's 3 locations. And what you're doing is there's like wheat fields, there's forest where you get lumber, and then there's like a brick and mortar pit area, and that's where you get your brick. For a player game, there's a market. And how you set it up is the location starts with a high amount of that resource. So I believe wheat starts with 5 wheat. Wood is 4 wood, 3 brick, and then the market gets 1 of each resource. So 1 wood, 1 brick, 1 wheat. And then you hand, everyone's hand, you have 4 cards, which each depict the location that you could go to. And this is hidden, so you place it down, face down, until everyone is placed down, and then you all reveal at the same time. When you do this is essentially the first turn of the game. You will move your miniature to the location that your card shows. So if you pick the forest, you go to the forest. Then the resources are divided equally, rounded down by the amount of people in that location. So if 2 people went to the forest, they would each get 2 lumber. If 1 person went to the wheat fields, they would get 5 wheat. So right away, you're trying to manage. It has a little bit of that Catan feeling as well to it. After your first turn, you do have a player marker. It's a book on a pedestal, which is pretty cool. The first player, will then gather resources. There's 3 steps, and after you gather resources, you are going to. I'm going to mess up the phases. I think the second phase is the build phase. You have 4 options, and you do 2 actions. One of those actions is to take a Fable card. And if you take a Fable card from the Fable deck, you're going to get modifiers or things that can happen to other players or to yourself in the game. And what they do is you put them into your hand, and then on your next turn, you can play a Fable card after you play your Gather card. So you put your Gather card face down, then you put your Fable card face down on top of that card. And then when it's your turn to go, Fable cards are revealed before Gather cards, and they can affect the outcome of either the Gather phase or other phases. It tells you specifically on the card when it affects the game. We'll use an example of something we actually had an argument over during the gameplay, and our friends probably went home and yelled at each other afterwards.
Gotta love a game
relationship
together.
It was just one of the things where one person was so sure they knew how the card was meant to be played, and the other person was so sure that person was wrong, and they knew how the card was played. And we couldn't all come to a consensus, and Board Game Geek didn't have an answer.
So really quick then, just as a quick side tangent, because I think this is a good question that we've never really gotten. In those scenarios, how do you decide how you're going to interpret the rules of the card?
So generally, we would, depending on the situation, it gets house ruled for the game until someone can look it up. But
how do you decide how to house rule it? Like, how do you decide, like, this is what we're going to go with? Like, how do you make that decision?
That's the tricky part because so this person is particularly bullheaded in, like, I know this is right. The game got the wording wrong.
Perfect.
So you can't really argue with that, right?
Right.
When you do, everyone gets, like, we were all tense, even though the 2 of them were arguing.
Right.
And for this situation, it came down to a fact where I had read this rule at the beginning and that person wasn't listening.
Oh, okay.
And then we ended up finding that person was wrong, but that person still wouldn't concede that they were wrong. They still said it didn't seem right and that there must be something wrong. So when things like that happen, it gets very frustrating. And this is why these 2 people, they don't play Boss Monster. together because they almost like
Oh, that
having
makes
a
sense.
month-long fight because of Boss Monster. So this might be a game. I don't know if he'll want to play again or she will. But I think in that situation, I try to do the best to diffuse the situation.
Hmm.
And if we have to side with the person who is a little more aggressive and upset, it's just a game. So if we can just get through the rest of the game, unfortunately, it happened late in the game, and I don't think we ever really came back from the tension,
Right.
which was a bummer. And like every time he would do something, there would be like a snicker, like an ironic, like angry, like snicker. Like there's no way they didn't fight afterwards. But what it was about this troll card. It was a bridge troll. So that was part of the Fable card. And it says when you get it, whenever someone lands on this location, something happens. Like you take half of their resources or whatever the case. So this person thought that meant they could put the troll down after people were already where they were landing.
Okay.
Because the card didn't say to place the troll first. But everyone has already chosen their locations.
Right.
So you're going there anyways, but this person wanted to wait to see where you were going so then they could choose who they would screw over as it was worded.
Okay.
Which didn't seem fair because also someone else had a bridge troll card on the same turn. There's only one miniature, so the rules say if two of them are out, you use the card as an indication of another one.
Mm-hmm.
So the point came to be, well, now if you both wait, you both could choose to attack one person, and then you take half of their resources, then you take the rest of their half of their resources.
Or would you get the half afterward? You know what I'm saying?
You would get the other half of what they have left.
Right. So you wouldn't get. So you actually would get less then because you're getting half of half.
But then that person would have almost nothing left.
Right. That's interesting. Because in these situations, what I always do, and I don't know if this is right, I always look at the card and say, okay, thematically, what makes the most sense thematically?
And that's what we were arguing, and he didn't agree with it. But we ended up finding back in the very, very, like the third page, the first page of rules, it says, if this card has a monster icon, a logo on it, place the monster first as soon as you get this card.
Because that would make the most sense to me, because as a bridge troll, you have staked your claim to a bridge before any traveler gets there.
Well,
you have a place that you live underneath. That is your bridge. Like, to me, thematically, the bridge troll would be there first.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I was like, well, I wouldn't go to this location if I saw a bridge troll underneath it as an explorer.
Right.
So anyway, so that was one of the things that happened. But that's what happens with the Fable cards. Sometimes they will summon a miniature, like I had the Big Bad Wolf. And if someone goes to his location, he blows down their house, or at least parts of it, depending on what they have built. And also, when you build your houses, you build them in stages. So you build the floor first. Once you build the walls, you also get a friend card. And when you unlock a friend card, it is like a character perk. So one of the cards I had was the Gingerbread Man. And it lets me, instead of using my gather location, I get to wait till everyone shows where they were on the gather board. So wheat, fields, whatever. And then I say where I was. But if I decide to, I can run away and just take one of every resource from the resource pool before players take it.
Man, thematically, that really seems to fit.
So it was very. So I really like that a lot. Everyone had a few different friends during the game, and you are only able to have one. So if you draw another friend, you can either give it to someone else, or it replaces yours. So what's cool about that is if you give it to someone else, they lose their current friend. So you might be inclined to remove someone's awesome benefit of a friend. The pieces of the house literally build together. They're really cool. They can come together to equal a house. And then at the end of the game, the person with if it's a tie, which we did have a 3-way tie, I was in very last place. I had 2 buildings with no roofs. But then when it comes down to a tie, you do it by the sturdiest structures. So more brick and wood beats out wheat. So So yeah, I'm probably missing some stuff, but overall, I really enjoyed it. There's also a two-player game where you roll a die, which simulates another player, where it takes
So
resources away from the game.
it's not really a two-player game.
I mean, it is, but it has rules that I think I'm interested to play a two-player because it adds like an automata style to the game, and I think that it's random, so it's not like it's stacking the deck against you, so to speak. Like you don't really know what you're getting every time you play with it in the two-player variant. It's definitely best with 4 players for sure, but I look forward to talking to you guys, the listeners, about what it's like with 2 players as well. But I really enjoyed my time with it, and I'm looking forward to teaching other people. I definitely have friends in my game groups that I would like to show this to. And I'm glad I kind of just got it to the table finally. Just kind of been sitting there looking at me, waiting to be played. So it gets a very high recommendation for me. Obviously, if you can get 4 players regularly, I think that's perfect for this game. So I don't want to give a recommendation on 2 players yet until I play it, but just thematically, if it sounds like it's something you're interested in, I don't think the theme is too bad for age ranges. I think young kids can play it as well. And I think the difficulty isn't too challenging. It's more of a deduction and strategy, like how what do you want to do, where you're going to go, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But yeah, very good. Great components. I'm a big fan.
So based off of this game, because Tidal Blades,
Yes.
that's doing same designer, same publisher. Would you recommend that based off your experiences here that you feel pretty confident in recommending somebody back Tidal Blades?
I mean, Tidal Blades looks like a whole new beast. It looks huge.
It looks really interesting, like just some of the pieces and kind of how some things interact. Like it looks really interesting.
Yeah, it definitely looks like something I haven't seen before. I would say check out Tidal Blades for sure, whether you've played Grim Forest or not. I do know they have Grim Forest Masquerade coming out soon. And I did ask them, they will be at PAX Unplugged, so I'm looking forward to checking that out. I don't think it's a expansion. I think it's a separate style game in the same universe. But from the quality of this game, I mean, that's why I looked up Tidal Blades, because I was just immediately like enamored with it. So it looks great. The deluxe edition looks incredible. Comes with a dice coliseum where you roll your dice in. Like, it looks awesome.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
All right. So anything else you want to talk about from a tabletop perspective?
No, I mean, I think we got a lot to talk about else for video games as well. I mean, I could talk about Mystery of the Temples, but I like to give it its fair share of time. So
awesome.
I'll let you jump into some of your games.
Yeah, so I had 3 on here. I'll pare it down to 2 because I think we're going to have plenty of time talking about board games and video games today, especially with talking about Essen later. We're going to have lots of board game talk, despite what Kevin says. So very briefly, I started playing more Onitama again.
I love that.
I know we have talked about Onitama on the podcast before. 2-player game. I don't know. This probably isn't the appropriate way to refer to it. I always think of it as more simple chess. Like, it's kind of like chess, but it's a 2-player game, a lot less pieces, a lot faster game. I've been playing it with folks at work, actually, as a lunchtime endeavor. Introduce some folks there to it as something that we can just do from time to time. And I'm really enjoying this game. I really like it. It's unfortunate that my partner's not a huge fan of it, which I think seems to happen with a lot of the games I like, but that's fine. I'm just glad I found people to play with it. So if you're not familiar, like I said, I know we've talked about it before. If you can find Onitama, it's very inexpensive. I think you can probably get it for around $20. If you're looking for a game that has a lot of replayability that you can play with a pretty broad age range, I would say if you have kids who are 8, 10 years old, and you don't maybe want to jump into something as deep as chess, but you want to have some good one-on-one time with a kid, or you're looking for something simple to play at work for lunch, I think Onitama can be a really good fit. I think the concept is very simple, and I just can't recommend it enough. So Onitama, again, I know we've talked about it before, but just re-emphasizing or reiterating how great that is. The other game that I got a chance to play, which I think you have talked about this on the podcast before, is this right?
Yes. Also,
Yes.
just before you go, there is an Onitama app for people interested. That's what I was trying to show you.
Oh, gotcha. Yes, there is an app, and I think
it's free. Yeah,
it's free. I think you can buy expansions, but the app it's free to play the base game.
Yeah. Which is a great way to figure out if you enjoy the game.
Absolutely. So go ahead, check that out if you'd like to. The other game then was a game that I finally got a chance to play. I have all these Kickstarter games, and I got all these really awesome things to jump into, but I was really looking to just kind of not have a really heavy, thinky game experience, and I was trying to look for something that, was going to hopefully be an opportunity for me to relax a little bit, and I finally said, you know what? I am finally going to play Takedo.
So that's your first time playing?
This is the first time I've ever played it. I've never played Takedo before. I've had it forever. Never jumped into it, though, and said, you know what? This is finally going to happen at this point. And jumped into Takedo. If you're not familiar, Takedo is a game that is designed by Antoine Bauza, Antoine Bauza's done, some games you might know. He did that little game called Seven Wonders. He's done Hanabi and Takenoko, and he's done some really, really good stuff. But basically, Takedo, it's almost so simple. It's complicated. Like, it doesn't sound like you can, like, when you explain how to play it, it doesn't seem like it could be a good game based off how simple it is. Yeah. Literally, there are four different inns that you have to travel to over the course of the game. It's a linear board. It is a straight line. You can only go one direction. There's no going around anything necessarily. And basically, on your turn, whoever is the furthest back on the road gets to go and move their piece to a location. Most locations are going to house one or two people. So if the location's full, you have to move to the next one. And then there's different types of locations. Like, there might be a shop where you can buy souvenirs. There might be a mountain vista where you're going to paint, a mountain. You might stop by a farm. I think it's the farms that give you money. You might stop by a temple and donate money. But every place that you go is going to have one specific action that you take. And that's all you're doing, is you're going through and you're taking these different actions. Once you get to the one of the inns, you have to wait there until everyone else gets to the inn, and then you start down the road again until you get to the next inn. And realistically, just every time you are stopping at one of these places, you get victory points, basically. And if you complete the entire mountain, panorama first, you get extra points for that. If you eat, I think it's like 3 or 4 different unique foods or whatever it is, you get extra victory points for that. And it's really just trying to figure out what action do I want to take to try to maximize the number of victory points I'm going to get. If you buy items from, I think, 4 different areas in the shop, you get additional victory points. If you donate the most amount of money, you get to the temple, you get victory points every time you donate money. But then if you donate the most, you also get additional victory points. Like, it's a very simple concept. Like, every place you go, you're going to get some victory points. And basically, if you do the most in any of those places, you're going to get more victory points. That's it. That's all you do. And you just kind of move down the road. And it's a really fun game. Like, for how simple it is, it doesn't seem like it should be that good of a time. I really enjoyed myself. I think the art in the game is beautiful. It's a really simple thing to teach people. I think it's a game that, from a family perspective, again, if you have kids that are maybe, again, probably 8 to 10 or so, they could easily grasp what they're doing in this game. It's just a cool game. I really enjoy it. I think it's a unique theme that you don't get very often, is traveling this East Sea Road in Japan, I think is what they refer to it as. Like, it's just a cool game. Like, if you're looking for something chill to relax at the end of a night, you just want to hang out with some people, have a good time, maybe tell some stories while you're having a drink or two. I think it works well for that. Or, like I said, if you're trying to just do something with your family, I think it's a really good fit there. It fits 2 to 5 players. I think I would guess probably about 4 seems like it would be, I would guess, the best fit for as far as number of players goes. But yeah, I really enjoyed Takedo. It's a game that's a little bit older. It's been around for probably 5 or 6 years at this point. But I finally got it to the table, and I'm really glad that I did. And I think it's something that's going to be making trips back to the table a little more often. Do you still play Takedo very often?
Not as often as I'd like. I do have it on my phone.
Okay. I know there is an app. How is it?
It's a beautiful app. It's really a shame it's not on the big screen because of how nice it is.
Okay.
Like if I had a tablet, I would for sure want it on that as well, just to get the bigger appeal. I just pulled out my Tokaido expansion because I wanted to look because the characters do have abilities on them as well, so you get like bonuses for your characters. So they have an expansion that has like 15 new characters, and it adds a lot of depth to the game. So like your goal might be to eat like different types of food in each place, or your character might give you these bonuses in other areas. But yeah, I mean, it's a simple, like elegant game. It's very nice to look at. They even have like a deluxe edition that has like metal coins and miniature figures and stuff like that look very nice. And they did something nice. They sell them separately, which is nice. So you can just make your game a better version.
Right.
But yeah, it's a very linear, and I think it's funny. Like you mentioned that, like if you get to an inn first, you have to wait because people like if you want to get ahead of people, sometimes you need to jump way far ahead.
Right.
If you're trying to like finish your painting, and you're really screwing yourself out of potential victory points because you're afraid someone else is going to move to that location before you.
Right.
Well, you don't want to donate to the church because you don't have money, but that means you'd have to skip that area to go to the next spot. Like, there's a lot of strategy for a game that doesn't seem, by looking at it, to be a very strategic game.
I would agree.
But I really enjoy it, and it's very, elegant is the word I would use for it because it's just, it looks so clean, and it's just a very beautiful game, and the app is no different.
I think you really hit on a good point there when you call it elegant, because I think it's an excellent example of taking away and taking away and taking away and taking away like a whole bunch of extraneous stuff so that like the gameplay is extremely simple. There's still some complexity as far as the decisions that you make, but like there's not, this game, it's not fiddly. There's no confusion about what is where or what means what. Like it is a very, elegant is the perfect word to describe how this game is designed. And I think when you hear designers talk about cutting and cutting and cutting, and you should constantly be cutting things from your game, I think this game is an excellent way to show like how good a game can be with a lot less to quote unquote do than you think there is, but how there's still some depth there, and it's still a very enjoyable, engaging game.
And 70% of the board is white. Like it's, if you compare it to like an Arkham horror or Eldritch horror, like the amount of detail is great on the game, but it's not just having things on it to have things on it.
Right. Absolutely.
Which I think is awesome.
Awesome. Well, hey, that's what we've been playing on our tabletop. Josh, what have you been playing on your television?
So before I start, I want to say a couple things. One, if you listen to the latest Play Some Video Games flagship podcast, you're going to get a lot of hot takes on video games, which is very interesting, and probably won't line up what I'm going to talk to you about. But it's good to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, I think. And then, so I don't know if you guys remember, but when Kyle and I started doing PlayStation Game Share, we had a moment when I was playing The Division, and Kyle went to install or do the whole setup, and he logged me out of The Division, and I lost my progress from the game, which was fine because it was early, but Kyle was very apologetic. And something not too dissimilar happened to again. So we were hanging out around the house. I want to say it was Saturday night.
Yeah.
Or Sunday night.
One of the two.
One of the nights, Saturday or Sunday night. And we were going through this thing in our house with our cat. And for a reason, we had to be up at midnight to feed the cat. So it was 11. And I'm trying to figure out a game I can play with my wife. And I'm like, oh, Kyle got us Overcooked 2, and I had downloaded it on my PlayStation. So I was like, well, let's see how our marriage is doing. Let's try playing Overcooked 2. So I logged into the PlayStation, and I saw Dono County. I was like, oh, why do we have Donut County? Cool.
Because I buy everything. That's why you have Donut County.
And then I was like, wait a second. I don't have Donut County. Kyle must have it. I was like, oh, we're signed in as Kyle. So I went over and I went to download it. And I clicked download and it said downloading. And then, poop, message popped up. You've been kicked off. And I'm like, whoa, why did that happen? And then I said to my wife, oh no, Kyle was on.
Yeah, it was.
Not 3 seconds later, I got a message from Kyle in Discord. And it happened, so for whatever reason.
I know why it happened.
My PlayStation changed my, like when I turn my PlayStation on, it shows up both profiles, but mine is always first. So I just hit X. And for whatever reason, it happened again today. I didn't sign in as you, but it was right there. Your profile was front and center instead of mine.
I think why that happened, and I don't know how to make this fixed, is I accidentally, and I don't usually do this now because I recognize how it's going to happen, I pushed the download. Because when I bought Donut County on the store online, and then I was like, oh, I want to play this when I get home. So I pushed the download to my PS4, which is then your PS4.
Right.
So that's what happened into why when you logged in, then I think it was me immediately.
Yeah. Well, I just need to pay more attention to which profile I'm picking. They just changed the order. But anyway, so I was like, well, thank God Kyle was just watching Twitch. And
I was.
I didn't ruin a game. So I said, okay, well, we have Donut County. So we played it for a while. I actually let her play. I played a couple levels, then I gave it to her. She played like 4 or 5 levels or stages, if you want to call them. I finished Donut County already. If I could describe Donut County, and I'm going to, so I don't need to ask permission, it is what I will call a Katamari-esque game.
Oh, it absolutely is.
And if that's not a definition, it is now. I will say this, and this might annoy you and probably definitely annoy Kevin. I skipped 80% of the story.
I thought the story was so funny.
Well, I thought it was cute for a minute, and then it started just getting too like I don't want to say meta. It started getting meta. It was a little meta for me. It was funny, and I thought I had a lot more fun watching what was happening and not knowing what the heck was going on, and just seeing. Did you finish it? Did you play?
I think I am on like the last or the very last stage. Like I am very, very close to done.
So just like seeing like a weird like king raccoon was very bizarre to me. Mm-hmm. And like these weird interactions, but it's essentially a story of a young girl and a raccoon who is her like online buddy friend, and they play this, I don't want to call it a shooter. They play this game on their tablets where they're trying to get this octo drone by like unlocking points in the game. Yeah. And they get it, but in real life they get it, and then like the raccoon smashes it.
No, the girl smashes it.
The girl smashes it because she's jealous or whatever.
She's mad raccoon.
Very bizarre, but
it's a weird game.
The part of the game I really enjoyed was like it's a little bit more puzzly than I thought it would be, which is cool. But it's simple and it's fun. Yep. And you literally you're just eating things with a hole in the ground that gets bigger the more. But there's like these really funny things that happen, like that you kind of don't even see happening until they happen. Like I won't say people can figure it out, but like there's a part of a level where you're pulling rabbits through the hole, and then things happen from there, and it's weird and quirky, and you find out that all these things are going somewhere. The hole isn't just an endless hole. It's really funny. It's very quirky, and even though I didn't pay attention to the latter half of the story, it's still funny when you get the idea of what's going on in a level and what you're doing and what your goal is.
Right.
It was very comical, and I really enjoyed my time with it. So thank you for getting that. That was really fun.
Really quick, I guess you can tell me how close I am. I just got the sheriff.
You just got the sheriff?
Yeah, I did the amusement park.
Oh.
So am I close-ish to the end?
Yeah, you're close-ish, but you're not
Okay.
like right at the end. I don't.
No,
think.
okay. Well, maybe I'll still finish it tonight. We'll see.
Yes,
Okay.
that was an interesting level too.
It was.
With the Ferris wheel.
Yeah, with the Ferris
Okay.
wheel.
All right. You still got a little bit to go.
Okay.
And then I've been playing Forza Horizon 4 a lot. I've now decided, off topic of that, I'm now going to start putting more time to Assassin's Creed, but I think I put enough time in to Forza that I can now casually pick it up instead of spending hours and hours on it. I'm really enjoying my time with it, and I say that knowing that people are saying it's not as good as Forza Horizon 3, which is fine. I totally get that.
Is that really what people are saying?
That's what some people are saying.
Oh, okay.
Some some PSVG folks. I know Sean Capri thinks Horizon 3 is better, which is fair. So something I took issue with that Kevin said on PSVG podcast is, and I'm not going to try to quote or paraphrase because I don't remember it perfectly, but in things that Donnie are doing, the game, they're criticizing the game because they're choosing not to race. You can't, and they don't love, they said it's very boring and that they liked Australia better. But this is like all trees and it's not exciting to them. I hate to bring it to them. Australia was all outback. There was not any different variety. There was a city. There's a city in this one. But they were complaining about like the clothing, and Kevin wasn't happy that all the avatars looked the same. This isn't a game about avatars. This isn't a game about what hat you're wearing. It's in there. They give you that option as something you can do. It isn't a game about collecting all 200 signs. It's something that you can do.
Did Nathan just get that done?
Yeah, Nathan just did it.
Yeah.
We're getting all 50 fast travel signs. They're entitled to their opinions, and I just hate that. I don't like that they're criticizing a racing game for the things that aren't racing about it. And that's what I love about it. I think all of my time I have spent racing. If I drive by a sign, I might stop and get it just because it's on my GPS, or if I'm in the area of a barn find where you can find these rare old cars that they like fix up for you, I will look for that. But for me, Forza Horizon has always been about the awesome, different cars. Every car feels different. The showcases, which are easy, I'll give them that, but they're showcases. They're to show how like cinematic the game can look. Like I did the Halo showcase the other night. It was awesome. Racing a jet is awesome. It's not practical. I get that. They do make it easy. They want you to win them. Because I know Coach said it was a little too easy for him when he did the hovercraft. You can turn the difficulty up, but they're there to have fun. And Donnie was complaining it's too open world. Well, he was saying that about Assassin's Creed, but he didn't like the open world aspects of Forza Horizon 4, and it was comparing it to Destiny, which I don't see. The only way it's similar to Destiny is if you do the Forza-thon. But all it really is just anyone who's in the area who wants to help compete towards this goal of these 3 stages. I've gone to do Forza-thons when it's just me. And I'm like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. Like my Subaru can't get 200 miles an hour 100 times to get this to 200,000 miles per hour. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, I'm not mad at them. I guess I'm just more disappointed that they don't enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying it, because I'm enjoying it as a racing game. And that's what it is. And it's cool. Like, I don't mind. Like, I get a wheel spin. I got the Carlton dance. I didn't need it, but you know what I did? I went and I just equipped it. I'm wearing a chicken suit with aviator glasses doing the Carlton. It's just something that you can do. It's funny to me to see, but like the game shouldn't be like held up against that. Like that's just extra. Like building they also like they talked about in this one you don't build the Forza festivals like you did in 3, which that was never a big deal to me. It was just kind of something that they threw in. For me, I feel like that's what the showcases are in this. Instead of building up to building a new stage for the Horizon Festival, you're building up to get a title for, like, I got my first title was like the off-road rally races. And I became like the king of that, which was awesome. And then you build up to showcases. So I'm like, cool, now I get to go do the Halo one. Cool, I do a bunch more races, now I'm going to get to go do this. But you have all these other options. So for me, this game is better than Forza Horizon 3 because they've improved on so many things. Not to mention the physics of this game are incredible. And the one thing that I'll say that I totally agree with, people are kind of getting frustrated with the seasons lasting so long. Winter is tough. I played with Nathan the other night, and I didn't know what I was signing up for. He just said he needed help doing a race, which I was happy to help him do. But I got in, and my time is like super limited, like with the baby. So like for 40 minutes, he had me trying this like hack that happened where people were like scamming points, but I didn't know that. He's just like, I'm going to start this race. You don't do anything. Just sit here. I'm like, okay. So I didn't do much, which I would have been fine with if he had like told me about it.
Right.
But then we were doing like the race he had to do. He was in the Aston Martin. It was one of the James Bond cars, I think. And it's in the winter. And because you are locked behind the DLC for Bond, I can't do those events on my own. So it made me borrow his car. So you can still do them with someone if you're in a convoy, but I have to borrow the same exact car I was using. So I'm trying to drive an Aston Martin Vantage in snow and ice. So I did terribly.
Well, I mean, James Bond could have done it. What's the problem?
Yeah, well, he probably has super spiky winter tires, but I didn't. So it was frustrating. I mean, I was happy to get on and play with Nathan. I would just like to play with him again in a situation where like we're both like participating with our own cars and stuff like that, because then we just played in like silence for like an hour, and then he was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go to bed. And I'm like, all right. This is probably awkward for both of us.
Because do the seasons last a week?
I'm not sure how long they last. I know it's still in winter, so it might be longer than a week, but it says when you go on how much time is left. I just haven't looked. But yeah, I mean, people out there like Calo are loving the game, and I'm super high on it. Like, it will be a game I just kind of pick up in between games. Like if I have 40 minutes before work and I know I can't start Assassin's Creed, like I'm gonna pick that game up, and that's what Destiny used to be for me.
You can play Assassin's Creed for 40 minutes.
I could, but I would want to play more. I can do I can go do a race or two in 40 minutes in Forza, or do a barn find or customize a car or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying it a lot, and I just wish some of our fellow people who were as excited as I were still hyped about it. But it's fine. I mean, it's more of a feeling like I'm on an island kind of situation than anything else. And that's not an attack at the PlayStation Island, because apparently they have the Crew 2 over there, and that's great. But yeah, that's it. I've only been playing 2 games.
Wow.
And yeah, I play more board games than video games. How crazy is that?
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad that our time playing Overwatch together meant nothing to you.
Well.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
That happened it wouldn't have even been on my to play this. Kyle and I played Overwatch last night because YouTube was a butthead and took a break. I had fun. It's been a while since I played Overwatch. I played it on the Xbox because I foolishly traded in my copy on PS4 thinking that Kyle had it digitally, and that was my fault.
Yeah, I just thought I did, and because I so rarely buy digital or physical games anymore. Like the Overwatch disc just lives in my system. So,
and there's no reason, there's nothing wrong with playing on Xbox, but for reasons, we would have preferred to play on PlayStation, which is fine. Found a new character that I enjoy playing, and her name is Arissa. So Diva's my main, so this fit in perfectly, except I was able to do a lot more damage and feel like I was contributing more. So I really enjoyed that character. And Kyle's a trooper for putting up with me, because Kyle's like a professional Overwatch player.
I'm definitely not a professional Overwatch player. It was fun. It was a good time. So
yeah, I had a good time.
All right. For me, I'll kind of go pretty quickly through most of the stuff I've been playing, because man, we've been trucking along here for quite some time already. So just really briefly, I got the Platinum in Spider-Man. Still loved it. I'm really looking forward to the DLC hitting next week, so I'll be jumping back into that.
Yes.
Still playing Astrobot and Overwatch. Those are kind of in the regular rotation, finding time here and there. Obviously, we've talked about Donut County a little bit, playing that as well. The only thing that's a bummer about Donut County is the reason I bought it is that when it came out initially, I wanted to get it, but it probably wasn't expensive, but in comparison, because it's also on iOS, I think.
Yeah, it's on mobile,
yeah, and it's like really inexpensive on mobile. It was like, I think it's like $3 or $5 on mobile, and it was like $15 on PlayStation. And I was like, I can't do that. But then it was on sale. So I was like, well, it's on sale. I'll get it. That's fine. But enjoying Donut County. The things I'm going to talk a little bit more about in depth. One of them is a game called Hover.
Yeah.
So Hover is a game, I believe the developer is Midgard Studio and Fusty Games. The publisher, I think they have a couple publishers, Playdius and Plug-in Digital, I think are the publishers. To be very transparent, this game, we did receive a code for this game. So this is a game that was provided by the publisher. So we did not pay for it. I have played some of it. Josh has played some of it. Hover basically is an open world parkour game. So you are a character who is in a high-tech city, and basically you are running around doing parkour, trying to bring fun back to the city of Uwood. The city, fun is illegal. There is no entertainment allowed. You are a team of folks that actually they call gamers that are fighting to try to bring back leisure and fun activities. So that's what it is. Open world parkour, running around, doing different tasks for people and doing all of this. Interesting things about Hover is you can play it from multiple different perspectives. So you can play it from first person, like kind of a pulled back first person, a little bit, kind of like almost between first and third person, I guess is the best way to put it, and then a true third person view. The art direction is something that they definitely have committed to, and there is a look to this game that is pretty unique and pretty original. I don't mind it. It doesn't fully jive with a look that I'm going to jump into. It's kind of like almost the Borderlands-y look, but not quite fully there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's overall pretty bright, pretty colorful. Definitely a specific art direction that they're going with, and for the type of game that they're trying to create, I think it works for that style of a game. Overall, I think my biggest, there's some good things there, and I like the idea of having this open world parkour game. I think that's something, if you're thinking back to like Jet Grand Radio and things like that, like that's something we get a ton of. This isn't a type of game that we have a lot of. For me, the struggle was that I really had a hard time controlling this game.
Mm-hmm.
That I would play it, and you can run on walls and you can like double jump and trying to kind of climb up things. It was never really clear to me of when this thing I could climb or this thing I can't, or when my double jump is going to work. But for me, like running on walls, I had a really hard time staying on them. I struggled, and I spent, I think it was like 45 minutes just being like, I'm going to figure this out so that like I can go around corners and do all these things. And maybe I'm just bad at video games. That is definitely a possibility.
No, it's not you.
Okay. I really struggled in getting to feel like I was flowing through the city. And I think one of the biggest drawbacks for me playing this game was I played it after playing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because Spider-Man, you would get it, and probably, and I recognize that development budgets and all these things are different. Like, I totally understand that. But Spider-Man, you got into this like groove and this flow while you're going through the city. And I think if Hover could get to that point where you felt like you were just going through this flow as you were going, I think it would be a lot of fun to play. I just really could not get that flow to work for me. So overall, I think it's fine. I think that would be the way I would classify this game, as it is fine. Apparently, there's supposed to be a VR mode to this, and at least the PC version of it. I was playing it on Xbox. It's out on Xbox, PlayStation 4, and PC. I believe this game was actually a Kickstarter game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was part of the Kickstarter. They talked about it coming out in VR.
It's supposed to be VR, but for production reasons, they had to try to get money. They had to put the game out in the basic form first,
right?
To try to get the rest of the money to get the VR version.
Yeah, so I think the VR version would be really cool, to be honest. Like, when I first saw this, I was like, man, this would be awesome in VR. But yeah, overall, I think it's something to maybe potentially keep an eye on. I don't remember how much it costs.
25.
It's 25. I think it's 20 on Steam. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a potential. I think there's an audience for this game. I just don't know if I'm this audience. I think, like I said, I think they're trying to go for a really cool theme and a cool style game that we just don't see that often anymore. I think with a little refinement, I think this game could have really hit a home run. And right now, I think it's more of us getting a solid base hit. That's kind of my thoughts on it. Do you have any particular thoughts about Hover?
I had a lot of frame rate issues, and I'm not typically the type of person to complain about but it was game affecting.
I had none. I had no technical issues at all.
That's weird. Yeah. Well, we always see that happen with other games too. I thought it was interesting that it ran in HDR. I didn't find anything stunning about the game.
Mm-hmm.
The controls were not great. And I don't know if you ran into like the mission where you like have to get like 200,000 style points or something. I could get 20. Like, they made it very difficult to, without any like, they give you this like generic tutorial at the beginning of the game that isn't, it's fine, but like as soon as you get into the game world, it's not something that is ever referenced again.
Mm-hmm.
And you have like a page you can go to look at like moves and stuff, but it doesn't show you everything. Like, I was trying to find out how to do a specific thing and I couldn't find it anywhere.
Right.
And like the graffiti thing, you can spray paint graffiti, but you can't find in the controls what button does that if you don't remember the tutorial.
Right. Left bumper.
Yeah, like I tried everything. For whatever reason, it wasn't working. Maybe because you had to like hold it in or something. You can run up to people and like have conversations with them in this town. One of the missions I did, I was like to chase a drone bot, and then it just like disappeared. And then like 40 minutes later, the next time I picked up the game, I randomly fell onto it and then started running again.
Oh, nice.
It was like 8 out of 10 hits. You only have 2 more. I'm like, well, okay. I gave up on this thing because it disappeared. I just think like the world itself is very on top of itself, literally and figuratively.
Yep.
There's a lot of ups. You have to go vertical, and it's not easy at all to get to where you need to go. And there's very little direction given on how to get there. So a lot of it's trial by error. I just found myself like completely frustrated with the game. And you might be right. Maybe there's an audience for it, and maybe the VR experience is really where it's meant to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, between the mouse controls and the menus and the teeny tiny like techie text, I was not loving anything about the interface. The leveling up system was so convoluted and not very well explained.
Mm-hmm.
That I had trouble understanding why it was there.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm definitely lower on the game than I think you are. I think it's way overpriced for what you get. But if they're going to keep patching it and working on it, we've definitely seen it happen with games in the past that games have come out a little earlier, maybe than they should have, and get better over time. I mean, No Man's Sky is another example of that. Obviously, not in the same level as this game, but um, who knows?
Right. So yeah, so that's Hover. Like I said, out on everything. We were provided a code for it, so obviously take what we say with a grain of salt. But I think probably you can feel like we were probably pretty honest about how we felt about it. And the final game I'm going to talk about, but I'm only going to talk about it very briefly, just a little bit for time considerations, but also just because this is a game I'm going to be playing for quite some time. I have finally jumped into Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I think I'm about 15 hours in right now.
Whoa.
Level 14, level 15, right in that ballpark. Yeah, it's funny because when I look at you play, like you're my only friend on you play. So it's like I'm first place at everything because like I've played way more time than you have.
Well, Donnie has played it, but he has like everyone like hidden, so you can't see him on Xbox.
Oh well, I was looking at you play because I was just looking at like how long I had played and all that good stuff. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this game. I like it a lot. I think it's really, I think the story overall is interesting. It's a bit predictable thus far, but it's interesting. Like I'm enjoying that. I'm a person who's a big fan of Black Flag. I really like the ship parts of Black Flag, so I'm really enjoying the naval part of this, if you would. I do like the fact though that if you aren't into that, at least thus far, it's been something that you can, for the most part, avoid if you're not into it. There's a couple little things, like a little tutorial and a couple of things you had to do, but in, like I said, my 15-ish hours, if you don't want to do a lot of that, you don't have to. I like how, I know there's been some questions because you can buy for like $10, you can buy a double the XP for all the time. I haven't run into an issue with that yet. I haven't hit a situation where things are way outpaced of my level. Things do level up with you, which is kind of annoying to a degree. But luckily, if you're a couple levels above something, you can pretty handily take care of it without much problem. However, if you're a couple levels below somebody, definitely potentially going to be problematic when you're running into them or trying to fight them. There's a mercenary system in the game. That has been probably my only annoyance thus far, is in the game that sometimes when you do things in the game, you can basically get, people will put a bounty on you, and so that means mercenaries come looking for you. And I have run into situations where I have been trying to potentially like complete an objective. And basically how the map is divided is that each part of the map has either the Athenians or the Spartans like have control. And then depending on kind of what you want to do, like you can flip control of those areas, depending on who you're trying to help out in those situations. And so like maybe I'll be going in and trying to like take out this like Athenian camp, and I'll take out a couple people. And then I get to the point where I'm like, well, I got just a couple left, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, maybe I blow the fact that I'm in stealth anymore, and then they all see me and they're chasing me. But then because they're coming after me, like there's a mercenary that was close-ish who sees me now too, because there's a scuffle going out. So now I have a mercenary who might be 3 levels above me, who's there trying to like collect the bounty on me, plus these other people I was trying to fight. And at one point that I had done that, I actually had 2 mercenaries that showed up, and one of them had an animal. So I had the people from the base I was trying to fight, plus 2 mercenaries, plus a bear.
Oh, jeez.
It didn't go well. So that's probably the only part that I've been like a little like annoyed at, if you would. And that's only happened one time. But otherwise, overall, I really like the combat. I also really liked Origins, and I feel like this is really just pushing Origins to a new level, or kind of taking a lot of the changes and the things they did with Origins and kind of ramping it up a little bit. Like I said, 14, 15 hours in, I think it's like 6% of the world I've explored at this point. So this game is huge. It's very, very big. But I'm really enjoying it, and it's probably a game I'm going to be talking about a lot moving forward. But initial impressions so far, very positive for Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Nice.
Man, do you realize we've been going for like an hour already?
This is what happens when we split up our gaming. Now all of a sudden we have so much to talk about.
I know, which was interesting, because before we sometimes would be like, man, I don't really have anything to talk about for games.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So they were playing all these games. Anyway, let's move on to topic of the show. As promised, Essen is upon us. Yes, folks, the International Spieltag Spiel also known as the Essen Game Fair, is upon us, often referred to as the Essen Game Fair. This trade fair is the largest in the world with over 180,000 attendees during the 4 days last year. The current list of titles on the Board Game Geek Spiel 18 list is 1,167. At least that's what it was when I wrote the show notes Tuesday morning. So 1,100 plus titles are going to be at the fair. And Josh and I have scoured the entire list. We've looked at all 1,000 plus games. Not really. But we just want to talk about some of the games we are most interested in that will be at the fair. This is going to be really similar to how we talked about Gen Con when we did our Gen Con preview a few months ago. These are games that maybe this is the first time they're going to be available for purchase. Maybe they're just a demo. Maybe this is a game that was a Kickstarter that only the Kickstarter backers have it, but now you'll be able to buy it. And in some rare occasions, maybe this is a game that is just available for purchase everywhere, but is for whatever reason being highlighted at Essen. I think for the most part, these are going to be games that are either available for purchase the first time or have a wide availability for the first time. I think for the most part, a few of them might be games that are just going to be demos, but I think for the most part, a lot of these are going to be things that are releasing at the fair. So we're just going to go back and forth, talk about these for a while until we get close to being sleepy because it's late. And then we'll kind of wrap things up and call it a night. So to start things off, Josh, what is one of the games you are interested in for Essen this year?
Okay, well, I'm going to start with Planet. I'm not sure that people are familiar. So just for the games that I cover, I'm just going to read the description of the game because they probably will describe it better than me. And then I'll tell you why I'm interested in it. So the spark of life is about to jump from your hands to spread out the world. Deploy your mountain ranges and your deserts. Spread out your oceans and your glaciers. Handle wisely your continents to form environments suitable for the apparition of animal life, and maybe you'll manage to create the most densely populated planet. In Planet, each player receives a planet core without anything on it. Each turn, players choose a tile with mountain, ice, forest, desert on it and place it on the planet. Then the player who fulfills the most conditions for the appearance of certain animals gain its card. So Planet is a game by Blue Orange who did photosynthesis. And you are quite literally getting a cube, decent sized cube you can hold in your hand that is magnetic. It has magnets in the center of this cube. And all the tiles in the game are magnets. You have this lineup of all these animals on the game board. It's not really a board, it's just a table. Use these animal cards as conditions for your planet. So if you have like an elk and it requires woods, you're going to get points for having the most connected, woods on your planet. And as you build, it's a drafting system. So people are drafting tiles to place on their planet. And you are literally creating this like hexagonal globe to represent like an Earth-like planet where you're trying to get life to grow. It looks super cool. Looks super interesting. It's another incredibly unique game, and that's what I look for now in my games is something unique and perhaps abstract.
Awesome. So quick question before I go to my first one, and I think you probably partially answered it. When you were looking through and trying to decide what games you were like excited about or looking forward to, obviously, with board games, it's a little different than video games that we don't necessarily have a ton of video coverage. Honestly, for a lot of these games, if you find any coverage of them right now, it's often in German. So how did you decide, or how did you put together the list of like, these are the games I'm most excited about? Was it things that were unique? Was it like new games from like designers you already liked? Like, how did you decide?
So for Essen, I typically get a better list after Essen's out, when we see everything, but
right.
I would consider myself a very active board game pursuer as far as video reviews and video coverage goes. So 80% of my mornings before work, I'm watching videos about games coming out or games that are out. So that's typically like any of the games on my list are either something I've already seen some coverage on or by title, maybe like a sequel to a game or a game I know by word of mouth. by like a developer like Culminats. We know Plaidhead's doing that. We know it's going to be at Essen. That's definitely a game I'm interested in because we've read some things on this show or online about a game that is coming out at some point. So it's a little bit of everything as far as that goes. What about you? How do you go through your list?
Yeah, so for me, a lot of it is looking at designers that I already enjoy and looking to see like what their new thing is. If it's a designer I already like, do they have something new coming out? Do they have something innovative coming out? And that tends to be how I look at it, is really from a design standpoint. Who are the people I like and what are new things from them is number one. Number two, what is something that looks totally different or unique that I've never seen before? So those tend to be like kind of what I am looking at. The first game I'm going to talk about really briefly, and all of these will be pretty brief because obviously we only know so much about them. I apologize if I butcher this name. We'll go for it. The game, this is the game I am most interested in, and actually I think right now is on Board Game Geek the most wanted game on the tracker for Essen, and I'm really excited about it. And it's called Teotihuacan City of Gods, I believe is what how you say the name is, Teotihuacan. This game is really interesting looking, but the reason that I'm most interested in it and the reason that it came onto my list is that the designers, these are from the same designers who did Zulkin the Mayan Calendar and also Voyages of Marco Polo. So have done some really great games in the past, and Zulkin is one of those games that when it comes to be an innovative game, like Zulkin is up there. It does some really interesting stuff in that game. This is kind of their, I don't want to say spiritual successor, but kind of like the next step forward in that. The other reason I'm really interested in this game is that I think this game is going to be very fiddly, but like every single game has a unique game setup that's completely randomized. So like what abilities you can do and how those abilities work, like all of that is set up randomly every time. Like if you just watch a setup video of this game, number one, it's huge. So I'm surprised it's only like $50-ish based off of how big the board is, how much stuff is in the box. I'm really surprised at the price, but I really like that fact. And I haven't played a really crunchy game in a while, and the current weight rating on this on Board Game Geek is 3.77.
Oof.
And I like me a crunchy game from time to time. So that's the game that I am most interested in. Again, Teotihuacan, the City of Gods. I think actually you can pre-order this on most gaming websites right now. I think you can even Amazon, and I think it's supposed to release at the end of the month. But that is the game I am currently most interested in from Essen. Josh, how about another one for you, sir?
All right, we're going to go with Monsterlands. This is by a developer I cannot pronounce, but also by Second Gate Games. It is described as a competitive dice placement game that combines resource management, worker placement, and fun combat. You take on the role of a leader of a small clan of brave warriors competing to win the crown of the lands of the Discord. You will visit buildings within the Citadel, the last bastion against the monsters that have overrun the kingdom. It's a game that has appealed to me, honestly, simply by how awesome the art looks for the game. I saw a preview of it. I haven't watched a review, but it has like this cartoony hero style look to it, but the monsters look really cool. I don't know too much about the game itself, but the player boards, everything like about it just looks super cool. And if you've seen Dice Throne, it's very similar art style, but the board has this really huge, very cool, like busy layout. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised if it's by the same people that do Dice Throne because of how similar the art style is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're fighting monsters, and it's a cooperative, competitive game. Just looks really cool. The dice are very cool too. They have like really funny looking monsters with one eye or multiple eyes instead of numbers on the die and stuff like that. So It's a game I am keeping my eye out for. Second Gate Games.
Awesome. So the next game on my list it's actually 2 games, and that's because I can't decide which one I am more interested in. It is either Carpe Diem or Forum Trajanum, one of those 2 games. And the reason you might say, Kyle, why is it 2 games and you can't decide? It's because these games have the same designer.
Yes, they do.
And he's one of my favorite designers, and he's a designer I think that a lot of people are split about, but I'm a big fan of him, and that is Stefan Feld. I think when you look at the history of games he has done and games I enjoy, like Castles of Burgundy, Trajan, Bora Bora, Bruges, Macau, Aquasphere, like he has made some really, really excellent games. And both of these games, Forum Trajanum and Carpe Diem, are both Feld designs coming up this year from 2 different publishers. And when I read the descriptions of them both, and I'm not going to necessarily go into them here, I couldn't decide which one I wanted to play more. Like, they both sound interesting in their own way. I think maybe I would lean towards Carpe Diem because I think Forum Trajanum sounds a little kind of like Trajan, obviously. Forum Trajanum.
Yeah.
It sounds a little more like kind of towards that. I don't think that's the Mancala mechanism, but I really am a big fan of Stefan Feld. I think the only thing that I ever don't like about his game, and I think this is his games, and I think a lot of this happens to just be, you'll see this a lot more in European publishers, just the quality of the components and the way, and the art and the way things look in his games, I always think is a little underwhelming. But I really enjoyed the gameplay. The point salad approach that he has to, there's a ton of different ways that you can earn points in his games, and that makes it, every time you play it, it feels a little bit different. They're a really good, typically middle-ish weight game in order to help people kind of progress from maybe those entry levels before they get into that really meaty, heavier Euro style. So Carpe Diem, Forum Trajanum, one of the 2 of those. I would probably be checking them both out, probably only coming home with one of the 2. Which one? I just don't know right now. What's next for you, sir?
All right, the next game is, I would say, falls into the incredibly unique type of game. It's by Asmodee and Hub Games, and the game is called Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. Holding On is a cooperative game where players work as a nursing staff tasked with providing care for the terminally ill. Your latest patient who's been rushed in following a massive heart attack on a flight from Sydney to London. When the game begins, all you know is this. His name is Billy Kerr. He is 60 years old, and he has been given days to live. What I think is super unique about this game is the next description is, players must work together to provide Billy with appropriate care, responding to medical emergencies while gaining his trust. Over 10 fully replayable scenarios, you'll need to piece together a lifetime of memories while being drawn deeper into his troubled past. As you discover more about Billy, can you help him find the courage required to confront the 3 regrets that keep him holding on? I think that is such a wild and interesting take on a game. Like, you're getting this game, you don't know, like, you're immediately throwing yourself into this theme, and you don't know what this guy has done.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how you're going to feel about having to treat him. You're putting yourself in the shoes of medical care, where you might have to take care of a guy who was a horrible human being, and you might just be slowly discovering it as you're playing. He also might be redeeming himself too, but you don't really know until you play the game. The components, the board game itself seems like it's out of time stories, the board itself, but it's very, like we talked about Calo being very elegant. It's very elegant looking. It's very simple. Not too much going on, but you get a cool little medical chart you get to write on.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting looking, and I'm excited to try it at some point, but I'm curious. This will be a game that I can't really find out too much because I don't want spoilers.
Absolutely. And this game was on my list. The only reason I'm a little trepidatious about it is, and everyone has to have a breakout hit at some point. The designers behind it haven't really done anything that's been really hit a big, not hit that everyone likes, but hit that's been really critically recognize. So hopefully this is it, because the game concept sounds very interesting. That's my only trepidation about the game.
That's fair.
So, but yeah, it was on my list as well. Next on my list, I'm gonna go with a little different route here. I think, speaking in the situation of games that I'm interested in because they seem unique and they seem different, I'm gonna go ahead and pick a game called The Boldest. Now, if you go and you look for this game, the first thing that's going to stick out to you is the art in this game. The art in this game is very interesting. It has a style that it is going for very specifically. And I personally really like the art. I think it's going to be kind of divisive. I think there's going to be some people who aren't going to like it. I think it looks pretty cool. The reason I picked this game, though, without knowing much about it, if you go to Board Game Geek and read, there's a really long description that talks about what the core mechanics are, how it walks you through the phases. It does all of that stuff, which is really cool. But the reason I'm interested in this is because of the designer. Her name is Sophia Wagner, and she actually won the Spiel des Jahres Fellowship in 2015. And her first game was Noria, which came out, I think, last year. And though Noria, maybe as far as a rated game goes, isn't like the highest rated game out there, I think it did a really interesting thing. Number one, it was pretty complex. It was pretty heavy. But number two, it had this really interesting like wheel that you use to pick your actions. And you kind of were like building this wheel throughout the game to decide how your actions were going to be and what actions you're going to be able to take. And it's nothing I had ever seen before. So I'm really interested to see what she does with this design, and if there is going to be something super unique like that in it, or is she going to take some more tried and true mechanisms and kind of refine those into something that she wants to do. So I'm just interested. The game looks, like I said, I really like the art direction. I think she did some interesting things with Noria, and I'm really interested to see what she does with the boulder and kind of how this is all going to develop and come out for her. So yeah, that's one that I am interested in. Or the boldest, excuse me, not the boulder, the boldest. Yeah, boulder, boldest.
Close, yeah.
So, awesome. All right, Josh, another one for you, sir.
All right, the next one is from NSKN Games. It's called Dice Settlers. It's not necessarily a wholly unique, like crazy unique game like we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But in Dice Settlers, it's a civilization dice game of pool building, resource gathering, and area control. Each turn, players reach into their bags of dice, roll, and choose their own actions, from exploring new lands and building the board through the gathering resources and trading to develop technologies which offer new abilities. Each player chooses their own path to victory. So the board's always changing. There's new, different technologies every time you play. So it's like Carcassonne-ish, like you're building the board as you play. But it's another game. I think it just looks great component-wise. It's been getting a lot of good word of mouth. So it's kind of a game I just want to check out and see what it's all about. I don't know too much more about the game itself, except like the Kickstarter version comes with like the coolest upgraded pieces. Like they actually have like actual pumpkin pieces and gold bars and wooden logs and coal. Like they look really cool. You won't be getting that in the base version, but it's just an interesting game. I'm always up for resource gathering, and the fact that they added like a dice pool building game to it, I think is a cool little amalgamation of game types that I enjoy.
Very cool. Next game on my list is a game that we have talked about, I think, in passing before on this podcast, even though it's not out yet. And that is the game called Selenia. This is by Sebastian Dujardin. He has done some other games you may have heard. He did this little game called Deus, which people seem to really like. He also did this game called Trois, which I'm a big fan of. I really enjoy Trois. So this game to me, number one, is really beautiful. It's also a 1 to 4 player game. So I always enjoy when they have those solo variations that are available. So that makes it interesting to me. You're making a floating city, and that seems kind of cool. I really kind of enjoy that idea of, it's got a day-night cycle to it. It's all about building a floating city. You have this big, cool, like blimp-like piece that you're moving across the board that's kind of building as you're going, because there's some exploration to it, some hand management. It's got a modular board, which I'm always a sucker for modular boards because I love that variable setup and everything that brings to it. So really looking forward to Selenia and everything that it's got going for it. It has a really positive buzz. And like I said, I definitely liked past games from the designer. So that one is high on my list as well. Josh, what do you say we do like 2 more and we'll call it good?
Sure. I know this one is also on your list.
That's fine.
This is my last one I pulled a link for, so this will be my last one.
Okay, then I'll do one more as well, and we'll call it good.
So this is Seven Wonders Armada. I thought this was an expansion for Duel. It is not. This is an expansion for Seven Wonders, put in a box that looks like a Duel box.
Correct.
So it adds naval combat to Seven Wonders. It also adds a lot of extra needed table space. This game has a huge table presence now. So what you're getting is additional red, green, yellow, and blue cards to shuffle into the deck. And each time you pay for the costs of any of those, not only the ones added in the expansion, any red, green, blue, or yellow, you can pay an additional cost shown on your naval board to advance your ship of the matching color. When you advance the red ship, for example, your naval gains strength at the end of an era. So you're now adding this whole new level of having to pay attention in Seven Wonders. So I think it's really interesting. It's something I want to get. Obviously, you guys have not figured out my folly with the Seven Wonders, so I need to relearn how to play Seven Wonders before I start adding expansions. But for people who have been playing Seven Wonders forever and still enjoy it, this is a great, just standalone expansion. You can just, not standalone, just a great regular expansion you can add to your game to spice it up a little bit. And I mean, you put Seven Wonders on everything. I'm going to pay it on anything. I'm going to pay attention. So I'm such a big fan of what they've done with all the Seven Wonders titles. So I can't wait to check this out and see what it's all about.
Awesome. I'm going to talk about 2 more games, and then I'll call it good, and they'll both be very quick. One of them is a game I know very, very little about, but it's a game by a designer who I really enjoy, and that game is called Blackout Hong Kong. And the designer of this game is Alexander Pfister. And if you don't know who Alexander Pfister is, he has designed, games like Great Western Trail, which was absolutely amazing. It's a top 10 game on Board Game Geek. But also, little games like Mombasa and Isle of Skye, which was the Spiel des Jahres winner, and Broom Service. Like, this guy has some really excellent design chops. And this is a game that, again, like I said, I don't know all that much about it other than it is there. Hong Kong is in a blackout, and you are trying to basically help create order and try to keep the city from kind of descending into chaos, while at the same time trying to do a better job of that than your rivals. So it's not a cooperative game. It's a competitive game. And you are all working to try to do a better job of keeping Hong Kong from just going into chaos because of this blackout. So again, huge fan of Alexander Pfister, really excited to see what this game is. And I just think that the theme is really unique. It's not something you see very often. So a game that I definitely want to go ahead, check out, see what he is doing there. The other game I want to mention very briefly, because I think it's going to be interesting to see what this game is. And this is a game called Fuji. And again, I'm interested in this because of the designer, whose name is Wolfgang Warsch. And Wolfgang, he's done some interesting games as of late that have really pushed the board game communities in separate ways. One of those games is The Mind. One of those games is Gonshon Cleaver, The Quacks of Quedlinburg. So he definitely designs some stuff that really divides the board game community as to whether the game is good or not good. Is it even a game or not a game? And I'm always down for that kind of stuff. So I'm really interested to see what Fuji is and how it's received by the community, because Wolfgang just does some really interesting things. It's I think this game is cooperative and it has them, and it's very dice focused. but I'm just kind of interested to see how Fuji turns out for him.
Oh, it looks so weird.
I know, doesn't it? So those are our games from Essen that we're excited about. I'm sure once things get settled down and Essen is over and the dust has settled, we'll probably talk about maybe some of the hotness that's coming out of there that we don't know about yet, that people haven't had a chance to play or get exposed to for the first time, and kind of see, are we still excited about the games we thought we'd be excited about after that. Josh, we've been rolling along here for quite some time at this point, but you know what? We have some wonderful listeners who have sent us some questions, and I feel like we need to answer them. So why don't you hit us up with those listener questions?
Sure. Well, we have one wonderful question this week from Splig, a.k.a. @Dopalicious, and Splig says, what are some moments / developments that has shaped the hobby into what it is today? Better manufacturing, emphasis on game development, geek culture being more widely accepted, social media closing the gap between developer and player, Kickstarter. You don't have as defined generations like consoles, but these ain't grandpa's board games either. So, Kyle, what do you think? Well, let's start, with the general question. What do you think is the big moment that shaped the hobby into what it is today?
I think right now, he actually hit it on the head. I think Kickstarter has been the biggest thing that's really pushed this hobby to where it is. I think, as games have grown, like the hobby board games are as popular as they've ever been. But, as a podcast that talks about both video games and board games, like success in board games is very different than success in video games as far as number of copies of games sold. And, print runs if you sell 5,000 games, you're doing great. Now, obviously, there are games that sell 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 for sure. Are those evergreen games like Catan and things like that are selling millions? Yes, those exist. But for the most part, a successful game is a game that sells 5,000 copies. Like, that's a really successful board game. So I think the ability for Kickstarters to go direct to and get funding from and find out exactly how desirable their game is, to not overproduce, to not have to have people mortgage their house and then have thousands of games sitting in their garage, like you heard the stories of that happened in the past. I think that's been the biggest thing to make games what they are today, to allow developers and designers to work directly with their communities, to be able to get an accurate count on the number of people who are interested in their games, to be able to produce games that are of high quality that people will spend $300 on. But you also don't have to worry about them fronting that money themselves and being able to get that money from the people, and having those people know they're going to, typically know they're going to get their games. Obviously with Kickstarter, there's still some failures, but for the most part for board games, it works really well. So for me, I think Kickstarter has been the biggest thing that has led to the hobby to be where it is today. What say you, sir?
So I think, social media obviously is a way for people to see kind of what people are doing, like gets board games more in the mainstream eye. But really, honestly, what I think really put board games into this movement we're in right now is Ticket to Ride.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that started something. The hobby was picking up steam before Ticket to Ride, but not like what happened when everyone you knew had Ticket to Ride or had played it. And this is like the monopoly of these games that we're playing now. It is a gateway game that opened the floodgates, to use gate twice in that sentence. But I really think Catan has been around for a while, and it's still a good gateway game. But I think that was like the gateway game for the year 2000. Like, people started playing Catan, and that got a bunch of people into games. But I really think Ticket to Ride opened up families into these board games, and even turned people onto Catan and things like that. So, and that could be more of a personal connection for me, which is why I see that. But I really feel like everyone in my community, everyone I know that plays board games, got into a game either that was Ticket to Ride or was similar to, because someone who played Ticket to Ride started playing board games and introduced them to Legendary or something else.
Right.
Like, I really think that's something that happened. And people started seeing pictures on Facebook of this. What are you playing? What game is that? And then they started seeing it at Barnes & Noble and then now at Target. Like, yeah, I mean, it's a great time. And these aren't Grandpa's board games. Grandpa's board games are games that they played, while doing other things. Like Grandpa wasn't sitting down for an hour to 3 hours to dedicate that time to a board game.
I should have Fireball Island here pretty soon, though. So
that's so exciting.
I know, that's going to be so exciting. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much, Blake, for always hooking us up with questions. If you want to ask us questions, you can hit us up at Board with VG on Twitter, and we would be happy to answer them for you. As we have now begun closing the show, we are clearly a gaming podcast, if you could not tell from the last 90 minutes of us talking about games. But we want to give you a recommendation, a suggestion, something that we're into right now that's helping us live a well-rounded life. Typically, this isn't going to be gaming related, just something kind of else that we're enjoying or something else that is giving us meaning currently, or even just, random thoughts, suggestions, advice, because why not, right? We all could use some feedback from other people to help us be better. So, Josh, what is your well-rounded life item for this week?
So, this is it's a little selfish, but it's not really. So we are officially a year old as a podcast. That's exciting news.
It is.
We didn't really do much to, we celebrated ish for our 50th episode, but we've been doing this for a year. So my advice for a well-rounded life right now is start a podcast. And I mean this in the most broadest of ways. If you want to start a diary podcast, do something where you sit down and you record your thoughts on something, whether it's something you're passionate about, something you're worried about. Because while Kyle and I do this for fun, this is very therapeutic. And it's something I look forward to every week. Sit down, get a mic, start a podcast. If you're a dad, start a podcast about being a dad. It's something I probably would have done myself if we didn't do this. It's great for your soul, I would imagine.
Do you look forward to podcasting even when I grill you about how much it should cost to have a streaming service?
Listen, that's in the past, Kyle.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was grilling you so hard until I listened to the podcast. I'm like, man.
It's okay. I cried myself to sleep that night, but now I'm good. But yeah, hey, you know what? Just like life, things come up like that too. Get your friends together, do a podcast together. Like Kyle and I, we get along pretty much all the time, and there's going to be times where we don't see eye to eye. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. What I do is if you don't want to start a podcast, start listening to podcasts outside your comfort zone. Something I challenge myself with is we're in such a polarizing time in the world. I have a tough time listening to people talk that don't agree with the things I say. And my tendency is to stop listening and shut them out. But that's not making me any better. So I find like a podcast like Dan Harmon, who the creator of co-creator of Rick and Morty and of Community, his podcast, Harmontown, he says a lot of things that I think are bonkers, and he's very forward, and he can be aggressive when he talks, and he's not always the nicest person. And I had a moment where I wanted to stop listening, but I decided I'm going to keep listening, and I'm going to hear his point of view. I don't have to agree with it. But the more I listen to him, I understand him more, and I understand his point of view more. It doesn't mean I'm going to side with him, but I feel like I'm more of a well-rounded person hearing things like that and being able to absorb things like that and not be so touchy-feely. But yeah, awesome. Start a podcast.
All right, start a podcast. So mine actually might go with that. And I know we don't typically swear on this podcast, and I promise this isn't going to be a bad word or too bad of a word, but I don't know a better way to say this.
You can say it. We've said this before.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to say my suggestion for a well-rounded life is do something half-assed. And what I mean by that, and I think it's important to clarify this, I don't mean that if you know you're good at something to do it not well. But what I mean is so often we are hesitant to do something because we don't think we'll be good at it. We are hesitant to try new experiences or to just give something a whirl because we might be embarrassed. We might make a fool of ourselves. We don't think it's going to go well. The whole idea of like do something well or don't do it at all. We are so entrenched in that. And I think that is so unfortunate because you miss out on so many cool opportunities that might be a ton of fun, that might not go super well, but you know what? You would have had a good time doing it. So put yourself out there. Maybe that's podcasting. If you listen to the very, very original episodes of PSVG, they're horrible. We were really bad. Really, really bad. Now, are we really great now? I mean, I like to think so, but I'm pretty biased, you know? But we were really bad at the beginning. And so put yourself out there, do something just because you want to, because you think it seems fun. I miss it terribly now, but when I lived in a place that had a place I could do it, I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was horrible. I was so bad. I got so humbled for the first 5-6 months that I would go. And I would go like 4 days a week. And I remember the moment that I actually passed someone's guard who was better than I was. Like they were higher belt than I was. And I legitimately passed their guard for the first time. I felt like a freaking superhero. I was like, I am the best. I am so good. Look what I just did. I granted he submitted me like 20 minutes, like our next time we sparred. But still, I thought I was amazing at that point. Because when you get to those levels then and you get to have those successes, they just feel so good. So that is my advice. Do something you suck at. Do something half-assed. Don't be scared to do something just because you don't think you'll be good at it. So, hey, that is our show for the week. Josh, what do you say we wrap this up?
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Remember, find us on social media at BoredWithVG. Use that hashtag BoredWithVG. You know, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/BoredWithVG. And, of course, the open inbox of boredwithvg@gmail.com. It's just sitting there waiting and waiting. Just come on. Let's get some emails. You can find me on PlayStation and Xbox at Why So Serious, SIRRIUS. You can also find me on Twitter at Josh Bones. And, you know, I post all my gaming stuff on Instagram on our thing, so no need to visit my Instagram. Kyle, where can they find you?
So you can find me at all the places: Twitter, Instagram, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Board Game Geek, all at Psychocross, CYCOCROSS. I've had people inquire about an update on the Metafall contest. So if you aren't aware, if you're a newer listener, we did a contest where people could submit their Metacritic guesses for some of the biggest games of the fall. And whoever is closest on all of the 10 games will win a free video game. I will give you an update next week as to where that is all sitting. So if you are a Metafall participant, you will get an update as to where that is currently sitting on next week's show. As always, if you have suggestions for future topics, be sure to reach out to us on social media because we want to talk about what you want to hear about. And as always, everyone, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.